Public health is defined as what we do collectively to assure the conditions in which people can be healthy. When most people hear that definition, they first think about doctors and nurses and clinics and hospitals. After that, they might think about public health agencies at the federal, state, and local level. When reminded that public health is about the conditions in which people can be healthy, people sometimes will then think about agencies that focus on education or housing, transportation, and environmental quality. Seldom do they think about the National Guard. Yet the National Guard is an essential component of our overall public health system at the federal and state level. Stay tuned and you'll find out why when we talk about the Minnesota National Guard and its role in public health on today's episode of A Public Health Journal.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal, a program that explores the public health issues facing our society today and tomorrow. The host of our show is Dr. Ed Ehlinger, Commissioner of Health for the state of Minnesota. A Public Health Journal is sponsored by the Minnesota Department of Health, the Hennepin County Human Services and Public Health Department, and the Minnesota Public Health Association, all working together towards the goal of healthy people living and thriving in healthy communities.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal. When most people think of the National Guard, they probably first think about their military role. Yet the National Guard serves many other functions that protect the health and well-being of people in our state. When needed, they are ready to respond to natural disasters like fires and floods. They are also available when there's civil unrest or when local law enforcement or security operations need more staff. They also help the civilian sector prepare for various emergencies like bioterrorism and bird flu. With their capabilities in the areas of planning, communications, logistics, transportation, engineering, and medical care, the National Guard is an essential and important part of our overall public health system. Joining me to talk about the Minnesota National Guard and the work that they do is Major General Jon Jensen. Major Jensen has recently assumed his duties as the Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard and the head of Minnesota's Department of Military Affairs. General, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
And so let's just start by having people understand what the National Guard is.
Sure.
I think most people sort of have a general idea, but let's specifically, what is the National Guard and how does it differ like from the reserves?
Okay, so on December 13th, the National Guard actually celebrated our 381st birthday. So we go back all the way to the Massachusetts colony, December 13th, 1636 was our first muster. So some people are surprised we are as old as we are. So we're older than the nation. And the National Guard, we're a component of the Department of Defense, specifically subcomponent of the Department of the Army and the Department of the Air Force. Here in Minnesota, we have both Army and Air components. Our Army Guard is approximately 11,000 soldiers. Our Air National Guard is approximately 2,000 soldiers. And nationally, if you put the entire National Guard together, it'd be about 440,000 soldiers and airmen across the entire country. We are different than the other reserve component, whether that's the Army Reserve, the Air Force Reserve, the Marine Reserve, in the sense that we have a dual mission. We have a state mission and we have a federal mission. So when we're not in federal status, we work directly for the governor of Minnesota. The governor can employ us in several of those opportunities and missions that you just mentioned.
So the governor has some responsibility and authority for the National Guard in certain situations, but not for the reserves, and that's more just a federal role.
That's exactly correct.
All right. And so who joins the National Guard and
Well,
why?
Yeah, and why? Yeah, great question. Primarily, young people are drawn to service of their community and their country. And I think that's the major reason why people come and join the National Guard. They want to serve their nation, they want to serve their community, but they also want to pursue other goals in their life. For example, maybe they want to go to college, or maybe they want to go to trade school, or they're already employed and they want to follow that. So we give them an opportunity to both serve their nation and community as well as achieve their individual goals.
And then do some people come out of active duty and go into the Guard and to sort of continue their military career?
We do. We get a small segment of our force is exactly that. Well, they'll serve first on active duty and then they'll decide to leave active duty. They'll come back to Minnesota, but they'll want to continue their military career. And so we're a great opportunity for them to do that.
All right. Now you have both a federal role and a state role. And I assume that the federal role is more on the military side, with getting deployed to various things internationally. Right. What are the things that you get deployed for on the state level?
On the state level, what we primarily get deployed for is in support of some type of state emergency. For example, wildfires, it would be an example. One of our most successful examples just recently, last fall, the fall of 17, there were 2 canoeists up in the Arrowhead that had become lost. And so we were able to use our aviation assets with their observation technology, and we were able to locate them and actually extract them from the Boundary Waters area. We've responded to tornadoes, we've responded to floods, and kind of maybe unknown to a lot of people is that we can also be deployed across the country in support of other emergencies. For example, the hurricanes that took place in late summer of 2017. We responded to Texas, we responded to Florida, we responded to Puerto Rico, we responded to the Virgin Islands. So we had soldiers and airmen that were down there working on behalf of the governors of those states and those territories in response to the hurricanes.
So what kind of expertise does the National Guard have to respond to these things? Because these issues are really quite broad and varied, and they need different kinds of skills and expertise. So what makes up the core competencies, more or less, of the National Guard?
Yeah, we have a great capability to plan and then execute missions. We come with a very disciplined force that's already organized and equipped to really take care of themselves. And so when we go into an area that might be devastated from a tornado or a hurricane or for floods, we don't have to draw on the local support systems. We bring our support system with us. So whether we're conducting security operations, aviation operations, transportation operations, all of those things that a community may need external support for, we're self-sustaining as well, so we're not contributing to the problem. We're there to really assist and solve the problem.
So you must have a lot of good trainers then in a whole variety of areas, because I know that you deal with planning and communications, logistics and transportation and engineering and medical care, all of these things. I mean, real areas where you need some expertise. Are those part of the Army Corps that comes in and helps you with this, or is this Corps part of the National Guard, or do you use civilian resources at times?
Well, primarily, we're organized and equipped by the Department of the Army and the Department of the Air Force. And so our primary mission every day is to be prepared to go support our nation in the execution of our national security strategy and our national military strategy. That is a very complex mission. And we really believe that by training for that most complex mission, that when we're asked to do something short of that, we're already organized and trained and equipped to do those type of missions. And so our wartime mission is what people normally like to call that. Your wartime mission really prepares us to do our state emergency mission.
All right, and I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing within the National Guard to keep the soldiers themselves healthy. But first, we need to take a little break. We'll be back right after this message. Excellent. Back.
In the Marines, we have a saying, everybody's green, nobody's black, nobody's white, Hispanic.
I'm an immigrant and I have an accent and I'm a female and I'm brown.
Some people know when they're growing up. At that time, I didn't know that I was gay.
People aren't always used to seeing a face like mine in a position of leadership.
In Judaism, there's a overarching law called Pakuach Nefesh. It means to save a life.
I thought maybe I'm going to stand in the back. But then one of the officers, he said to me, no, you come in the front. This is the military. You practice with all of us. And I was like, wow, that made me feel like that was wonderful. I felt equal to everyone else.
When you're in a foxhole, when you're dependent on somebody, it doesn't matter what their gender is or what their sexual preference is.
People don't care what you look like, what you believe, where you're from. What people care about is, do you have my back?
It's great that we don't have to have people basically compartmentalize parts of themselves in today's military, or at least that we're working towards that.
Well, I remember one of my fellow cadets said to me, the Army would be very lucky to have you.
Being a part of a diverse team and being able to lead a diverse team is a great asset and or strength.
And doing your part to help out and standing up for the rights of individuals that are protected by our Constitution.
People coming from all walks of life really is the strength of our service.
Welcome back. We're talking with Major General Jon Jensen from the Minnesota National Guard. General, that was an interesting video, and I think let's talk about the diversity within the National Guard. Does that reflect what you're trying to do here in Minnesota?
Absolutely, it really is. Those were some very powerful messages, and those messages really describe exactly what the Minnesota National Guard is doing and wants to achieve as well. So when you look at the demographics across the state, right now in Minnesota, the diverse population of Minnesota is about 18%. In the Minnesota National Guard, we're a little over 16%, and we've seen phenomenal growth over the last 7 years. Major General Rick Nash, the previous Adjutant General, was a very strong advocate that we had to diverse our force. We have to look like our community, because in the National Guard, we draw directly from our community, and we support our community directly. So, we've been working very hard towards that, and we've had great success. We're very happy, but we're not satisfied. We're going to continue to work that, because it's important.
Yeah. Why is it important? Why is it important to have a workforce, a National Guard, reflect the community?
Well, in the very worst possible way that we might be employed into a community when there is a disaster, let's say a tornado. When they know that the National Guard shows up and we are their neighbors and we are part of their community, there is an immediate trust that is formed between the National Guard and the people that we're serving. And having been deployed overseas multiple times and having supported state emergencies multiple times, I can tell you that the service locally means as much as anything that I've ever done. To actually go and support my fellow citizen directly has been one of my professional joys during my career.
Yeah. Now, you've been in the military for a long time, so you've seen the military change. And just looking at those folks there, you got people who are hard of hearing, and you have GLBT, and you have different races and ethnic backgrounds and religions, and that has changed. How have you seen that change, and how has that affected the Guard in particular?
Well, I strongly believe this, that service should be available to everyone. Not everyone is going to select service for their own personal reason, and that's okay, but service should be available to everyone. Because what we really want to do is we want to provide our opportunity to achieve your life goals to the widest population that we can. And so, for example, how has it changed the most dramatically? I grew up in an infantry battalion as a young soldier, and then as an infantry officer spent almost all of my career inside of organizations that were prohibited from having female soldiers in them because of our combat role. Just recently, within the last couple of years, we've changed that, and we now allow females in the Army to serve in almost every single position. And I think that's wonderful. Every opportunity in the military should be available to all of our service members so they can go and achieve their individual goals while supporting and contributing to our organization.
Right. And then how do you support all of these folks? Being in the military and being in the National is a stressful operation, and we know when you get deployed, overseas at tours of duty, come back and we hear lots of things about PTSD and suicides and mental health issues. What are you doing to really help both the physical and the mental health of the people who are employed with you?
Yeah, Commissioner, you're exactly right. Service today is harder than it was when I enlisted in 1982. And so we've had to respond to that. And so in the Minnesota National Guard, kind of what we look at are 5 pillars of support or wellness to our soldiers and our airmen. There's a physical pillar, there's a psychological, there's a spiritual, there is a financial, and then there's a family aspect towards wellness as we approach this with our service members. And so, for example, on the physical side, obviously there's a physical standard you have to meet in order to enlist in the service and then also maintain service. And what we've noticed is that younger people are coming into the service much heavier than they used to because of our more sedentary lifestyle that we have in America. So last year we identified that we wanted to really focus on wellness for a at-risk population in the Army Guard. So we took 55 soldiers who either didn't meet the height, weight standards of our service or the physical fitness standards of our service. And we spent 2 weeks with them trying to change their lifestyle habits, to change their life effectively, to make them healthier so they could continue to serve with us if that's what they elected to do. On the psychological side, we have behavioral health specialists that are available to our soldiers. We work extensively in trying to prevent substance abuse, but also those soldiers and airmen that suffer from some type of substance abuse to be there for them as well. On the spiritual side, we have chaplains across the entire state, both in the Army and the Air Force, that are committed to the spiritual journey of our soldiers and our airmen, and they run a program called Strong Bonds. And that it really is to create a stronger bond with that soldier and their significant other, whether it's their spouse or friend or just family. And then on the financial side, one of the things that we have with our Yellow Ribbon Network is that in order to be declared Yellow Ribbon certified, you have to be able to offer financial consulting services to our soldiers as well. And then our families, our family readiness groups, our family assistance centers, are all focused, as is our Yellow Ribbon Network, focused on ensuring that our families have what they need when their service member is deployed and serving their country.
Right. As you've seen over the years that you've been in the military, the things that affect people, have you changed how you do your work? I mean, is the military doing things differently now than they did in 1982 to protect the health and well-being of the soldiers?
Certainly. In 1982, we had a much stronger mentality that it was really 2 days a month and 2 weeks a summer. And then we didn't spend a lot of time engaging our soldiers outside of direct service. Today, what we expect our leaders to do and be a part of is their soldier and their airman's life every single day. You know, we say you never stop being a leader. So if you're a squad leader and you're responsible for 8 other soldiers, you're responsible for them 30 days out of the month. And so we ask them to be involved, to help monitor. And when you notice something or you become aware of an issue with a soldier or your airman, to immediately report that so we can ensure that we're able to link up the soldier and the airman with a service.
All right, good. Well, we need to take another little break, so we'll come back in just a little bit. We'll be back right after this message.
Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. You've seen them helping in our communities in times of distress, through floods, through fires, through hurricanes, through tornadoes. You've watched them go abroad, and you've heard people call them heroes.
They are the men and the women of the National Guard.
Fathers, mothers, sons, sisters, neighbors, friends. National Guard soldiers can be found everywhere you go.
But not everyone knows what the National Guard is. Today, we're here to tell you all about it. We'll cover everything you want to know, like what is the Guard, how to join, jobs in the Guard, and life in the Guard.
From uniforms to fitness, from ranks to benefits,
we're pretty sure that after watching this video, you'll understand the National Guard.
Let's take a look at a brief history of the Guard. The National Guard is the oldest branch of the U.S. military and goes back more than 360 years, to before there was a United States of America. In the face of danger, farmers, doctors, and colonists banded together to protect their families and their freedom. And ever since, citizen soldiers have helped write the history of America.
Today, the National Guard's men and women serve in each state and territory, providing a helping hand in their communities and to their nation when they are needed.
One of the most important defining factors of the National Guard is that the National Guard has both a state and federal mission. In times of peace, the National Guard is a part-time commitment. Soldiers train year-round, 1 weekend a month, and 2 weeks a year to be ready when needed.
National Guard soldiers serve in their communities to help and provide relief in times of need, like natural disasters, hurricanes, and floods. They can also serve their country in times of war when called upon from the President of the United States. Soldiers usually serve from 3 to 6 years, depending on their commitment.
Welcome back. We're talking about the Minnesota National Guard with Adjutant General Jon Jensen. General, let's talk about, in the few minutes we have left, some of the unique things that you do and the partnerships you have. But first, the unique thing is the National Guard was really involved in bird flu a couple of years ago when we had to get rid of, depopulate, like 40 million turkeys. What was your role in bird flu?
Yeah, that's an amazing story in the sense that, when you look at what the military or your National Guard might provide, that was not one that we had on our list. But in early spring of 2015, the avian flu hit the turkey population of Minnesota, devastated that population. And the response that Governor Dayton had to that was really an interagency response. There was the Department of Agriculture at the federal level, the Department of Agriculture at the state level, Department of Natural Resources was involved, obviously, because avian flu possibly was coming from our wildlife. And then the Minnesota National Guard got involved with our 55th CST, our civil support team. Now, normally that civil support team is there to monitor and respond to a chemical or a biological event, but they have great capability that's very mobile. And so what we're able to do is go out and support the detection of the avian flu in the turkey population with that mobile lab, and really did some very unique new things that team had never been asked to do across the nation. And the good news is our turkey population responded or rebounded after that event, and has continued to be one of the key economic drivers in the agricultural community here in Minnesota.
Well, it really speaks to your flexibility and the diversity of resources that you have and the abilities that you have. It also talks about the partnerships. It sounds like you have a lot of partners in the state level. Tell us about some of those.
We really do, and so we try to partner community-wise and state-wise, again, because this is where we come from. And then we try to, through that partnership, create new initiatives. So I'll just talk about one very quickly. So the Military Mental Health Coalition. We saw that in the private sector, the medical private sector, that maybe military service wasn't fully understood. What resources were available to servicemen, what were their experiences while on service. And so we brought this coalition together to do nothing more than help explain what a service member does, what a service member might have been exposed to, and their reaction to that. And we were able to help educate our civilian health providers on the unique opportunity or the unique experience a soldier may have. But obviously at the state level, the Department of Health, Department of Health Services are key partners. The Minneapolis Veterans Affairs Hospital is a key partner to us as we continue to work through, as you mentioned, PTSD. How do we identify soldiers that may be exposed to that, and how can they respond to that once diagnosed?
So what do you see as opportunities for kids coming out of high school, kids who are in college, kids who are coming back? What's the opportunity that you offer in the National Guard here in Minnesota?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I mean, because that's what we do. We sell opportunity. My personal story is I enlisted in 1982 for 6 years for the college money, and I knew that after 6 years I was going to get out of the military. I had no desire to have a military career. Now here I am 35 years later as the Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. And so there are those opportunities. If you want to pursue civilian education, we can help pay for that. If you want to pursue a job skill, we can help identify that for you and get you practical on-the-job training for that. If you want to travel across this great country and across the world, you will get that opportunity if you join the National Guard. And so, we believe that we can match up your individual goals with what we have and what our goals are.
Yeah. General, this has been really informative, and thank you for being a good public health partner. I hope people recognize the fact that public health is what we do collectively, and it's partnerships, and it's a bunch of agencies working together to make us a healthy state. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
I'll be back with a closing comment right after this message.
Every time we fly, we give a brief, and purpose of it is to familiarize you guys with the aircraft, the safety features, what to do, what not to do, where we're going to go, so you kind of have an understanding of what to expect. Hearing deficit is very important to prevent, so let's make sure that we have our ear probe securely put in. Again, what you'll do is you'll foam the tip, lift your ear up, insert it into the ear canal, and the foam will expand in your ear canal. Two very important things to stay away from. There's a tail rotor on the left side of the aircraft that you want to stay away from. Just make sure that when you are walking towards the aircraft that you walk in a single file line straight into the aircraft, okay? The emergency exits, the windows will push out, all right? And that's gonna be your emergency exits. We do have some emergency equipment on the aircraft. We have 3 first aid kits, all right? 2 go bags, which are full of medical equipment and some supplies. And then we have a crash axe, okay? Don't worry about grabbing none of that stuff, just get out of the aircraft safely. Let's say we do have an emergency, you hear egress, 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 we're all gonna get out of the aircraft. You're gonna exit at the 9 o'clock and the 3 o'clock, all right? So you'll just exit that way, make sure you get away from the rotor system, far enough away, and then meet at the nose of the aircraft, at the 12, okay? We just need to make sure that we know what the emergency procedure is. Get a manifest for that first flight, and we'll get going.
Let's go.
Once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's a really amazing thing to do.
I started this program by defining public health as what we do collectively to assure the conditions in which people can be healthy. That definition highlights the fact that public health is a team activity. No one individual or one agency can protect and improve the health of everyone in our state. It requires the efforts of many. Ideally, everyone in our state should take whatever opportunities are available to contribute to our overall health. People who serve in the National Guard have stepped up to contribute in a very special way. Yet there are other opportunities, like joining service organizations, or serving as coaches or mentors, or volunteering to serve on boards or committees, or even just making sure you vote in local, state, and national elections. Communities are healthiest when members of the community are actively engaged with each other in trying to improve the conditions where they live, work, pray, play, and go to school. Paul Wellstone once said that we all do better when we all do better. I'll expand that a bit by saying we all do better when all of us contribute whatever we can to protect and improve the living conditions in our communities. I urge you to find the opportunities to do that, and I guarantee that we'll all do better. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you can join us again next time on A Public Health Journal.